Hey y'all, I'm Holly.
And I'm Pearl, and this is Hold My Sweet Tea. Welcome to Hold My Sweet Tea, the podcast where we sip tea and uncover the hidden secrets and chilling crimes lurking beneath the surface of Southern hospitality.
Yes, ma'am, along with spooky tales and haunted history that give the South its eerie charm. So before we get into my episode today, how about Snowmageddon 2025?
Oh, yeah, that was some fun, especially for my dogs.
Right. Mine too. And it snowed about a good 8 inches at my house. We
Yeah,
we had a lot, and that is completely out of character for the South.
yep. When I went out into my yard wearing my muck boots, I stepped into the what should have been the grass, and I felt like my foot fell forever. It was like almost halfway to my calf muscle on my leg. I was like, "Oh, wow."
Wow. Yeah. It's very few and far between and once in a lifetime almost thing to get that much snow in the South. It was beautiful while it lasted, but I'm glad it's gone.
Yeah, I think my daughter built a very short snowman, but she's short, so there's
Right.
that. She built a very short snowman, and there was probably about 3 inches of snowman left this morning.
Yay.
And the rest of the yard is perfectly green, so it's kind of
Yeah.
funny to see this like little pile of ice right there.
Right. He's like, I'm holding on to the last minute.
Right. He's like, "Where's my magic hat?"
Go home, Frosty.
Exactly. Oh my
But
goodness.
yeah, but it was fun. We liked it. We played in the snow. We built a snowman also, me and my son, and had some good times.
Yeah, no snowball fights at our house,
Yeah.
but my multi-palm, she got some snowballs in her dog pits. So,
Her dog pits.
yeah, we go inside, take off her sweater after she's been like jumping through the snow like a little rabbit, and she's got like balls of ice collected in her fur.
She was saving him for later, Mom.
Right. She's like biting at those, trying to get them off while I was using a towel to try to make them melt. It was hilarious, but she had the best time.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that. Well, on a lighter note, I put a paper cup in our new microwave and it almost set it on fire.
How does a microwave burn a paper cup?
I have no idea, but it was scary. I was like, I smell paper burning. I will not use paper cups in the microwave anymore.
No more hot tea for you.
We're supposed to be drinking sweet tea, not hot tea.
Right. Well, I mean, it's been cold, and I think we
Right.
both have a little, sinusy thing happening
Hmm.
here from sitting in the dry ass air inside my house. I'm
Right.
like, oh,
Yeah.
it's so dry. I hate the heater.
Same.
It just messes up my sinuses altogether. So I think that we've had to take a little reprieve from the sweet cold tea and hit up the
And have
hot
a
stuff.
little hot tea, get the throat lubricated.
Yeah.
So I guess I will jump into my case today. Um, Today we're heading down to Mississippi, where a horrific crime against a 10-year-old child named Beatrice Louise Routh was committed in 1991.
Yeah, this one's a rough one, y'all. There are several triggers in this episode that involve a child victim, so definitely today, listener discretion is advised.
Beatrice Louise Routh was a beautiful, vibrant little girl with her whole life ahead of her. According to one of her teachers from King Street Elementary School in Pennsylvania, one of the many schools that she did attend, Beatrice was starved for attention. She was a really happy child who loved being in school. Despite having asthma, Beatrice did not want to miss a class. Like she wanted to be there all the time. Beatrice's mother, Tammy Giles, had moved her and her sister Melissa around several towns in Maine before ending in Pennsylvania, where they were living in homeless shelters and eventually in an apartment. She pulled her from one town to the other, one school to the other. She was in and out. Not a stable life.
Yeah, I know what that one school to another stuff feels like.
Mhm.
It's tough to adjust.
Yeah, to make new friends and to just have somebody your own age to be with.
Yeah, sometimes I felt like I didn't even want to make friends. I'm like, we're gonna be leaving in 5 minutes, so it makes things a little hard when you're young.
Right, and that's kind of what Tammy did. One day she pulled Beatrice out of school and said, "We're moving to Mississippi." Giles and her two daughters, along with a group of vagabonds that she had stayed in shelters with, headed to Mississippi. So, what is a vagabond?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
I just thought it was just homeless people. I mean, it essentially is,
Yeah, it
but
does sound pretty derogatory.
hmm but it's a group of people who have no home, no job, and they just move around often. So kind of like gypsies, pretty much.
Yeah,
Which, fun fact, I recently found out that I have a little bit of Romani blood in me, which are gypsies, from
yeah.
Europe. And I was like, oh my gosh, I could have been a
Wow.
gypsy.
Yeah. Look at you, you vagabond.
I'm a vagabond. I'm a very stable vagabond.
Right, I was gonna say.
I
I,
am not about the vagabond life at
I
all.
think someone took your vagabond car, girl.
Yeah, absolutely. So this group of vagabonds included her friend Sherry Lynn Vincent, Sherry's two children, along with Sherry's mother and sister. So four adults, four kids in a van does not sound like a good time to me.
No, me either. How the heck did they all fit in there? Everybody did not have a seatbelt.
I'm like, was it one of those huge conversion vans? Was it a minivan? I don't know. Didn't specify, but
Yeah.
I would say it was probably a minivan, but that's a lot of people in a minivan.
Yeah, I was like, I'm hoping it's a full size van with, like the fold down back seat. You can make it a bed. I
Right.
mean, they're basically staying in
Yeah.
it in this trip, so I don't know.
On August 1st, they made it down to Gulfport, Mississippi. And Gulfport is like a really nice area. My family used to go when I was a kid. The water is literally the color of mud, though.
Oh yeah, gross.
It's yeah,
It looks really dirty all the
it's
time.
like a greenish brown.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the dirtier part of the Gulf, like the Louisiana coast and Mississippi coast. It's kind of yuck
Yeah, it's
looking.
definitely not the blue pretty stuff you want to swim in. I mean, it's been tested a billion
Mm-hmm.
times, and they actually aren't even ranked the worst water
Oh, that's
ocean-wise, which is
yeah,
scary.
right.
But it's not ranked the worst, despite what everybody always says, like, don't swim in Biloxi, it's
Mm-hmm.
nasty, it's got sewer and blah blah
Yeah,
blah dumped into it. And honestly, there are places that have much worse.
I believe it, but it's pretty gross. And I like, Biloxi or Gulfport, Biloxi area. That's really nice. They had, when I was a kid, I remember going down to like the little gift shops. There was all kinds
Oh
of
yeah.
restaurants and things like that down there. I also got stung by a jellyfish and I thought my life was over. Like I literally felt like my leg was paralyzed. It hurt so bad. Um, my brother even offered to pee on it, and I was like, absolutely no.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I
He's
will I will just take the pain.
Yeah, secretly he's not just trying to help you, because that
Right.
would have made his entire life to be able to
Right.
say, "Hey, you remember when I peed on you that one time?" And he would choose to do it in front of a bunch of people.
Right. Absolutely would because he was the baby until I came along, so he was jealous and he used to try to like suffocate me and kill me when I
Oh my
was
god.
little.
Shame, shame.
Right. But anyway, back to our episode. So the group pulled into Jones Park to let the kids play since they had been cooped up in the van all day. And Jones Park is a pretty large 60-acre park on the Gulf Coast. It has a huge parking area, playground. Pre-Katrina, like Hurricane Katrina, it
Mhm.
wasn't as fancy, but they had made some big improvements since then. There's also a harbor shop where they sell fuel and bait for people who are using the marina. You want to go out and throw some lines and fish a little bit. You can buy your bait right there. This
Can
is where Giles sent Beatrice, her 10-year-old child, over to ask a man who was using a payphone if he could give her some cigarettes for her mother.
Are you kidding me?
No.
I mean, it's terrible. You're sending a little kid to go talk to a stranger, one,
Mm-hmm.
which, I mean, for me, my kids, it was like stranger danger, don't talk to
Yeah.
strangers ever.
Yep.
And you're asking her to ask for cigarettes. Okay.
Yeah. Completely bonkers. I would never. But the man gave Beatrice a pack of cigarettes, and then he proceeded to follow her back over to where their van was. So apparently he, saw an opportunity. So this man introduced himself as Donald Leroy Evans. I don't know if he actually said his full name, but it just seems weird how articles call everyone by their full government name.
Yeah, especially after you commit a crime, it's like all of a sudden your middle name becomes super important.
Right. So most of these all have first, middle, last name, but I
Hmm.
try to go by last name for most of them. Evans befriended the group and told them that he was a former Navy SEAL and that he had taught school in Texas.
Oh, look at that. Let me try to make you comfortable by telling
Hmm.
you I was military and a teacher.
And a teacher, yeah. I'm okay with kids, and I fought, and I'm this cool
Yeah,
guy.
yeah.
After visiting for a while, Evans offered to purchase the group some groceries. He asked Giles if Beatrice could ride along. Okay. So Giles agreed, and the two returned 20 minutes later with bottled water, orange juice, and ice. He was like, "Here's the stuff. I'm going to go to another store a little further away and buy some diapers and snacks for the kids. Can I take Beatrice again?"
Hold up. He, okay. He just went to a store that apparently only sells bottled water, orange juice, and ice. There's no snacks, no diapers.
Apparently not. So he's like, "Okay, well, I'm going to, go to this other store because the kids need diapers and snacks and stuff. So, look, can I take your 10-year-old child with me again?"
I'm like, this is sus.
Yeah,
Like, totally.
like
Why do you keep trying to take my 10-year-old?
like my brain can literally not fathom why a mother would let her child go with a stranger. But Giles was like, "Sure, take her with you." They returned to the park a little while later, and Evan spent the afternoon with the group, no doubt gaining their trust and talking to Giles about all of the awesome things he did and how awesome he was. Later that evening, before sunset, Evan suggested, "Hey, let's have a barbecue. I'll go buy all the stuff and cook it on the grill." Everyone was like, "Yeah, that sounds great." But then Evan suggested that Beatrice ride along with him to the store again.
Oh my God. Not a third time.
Yeah. This time, though, Beatrice didn't want to go. She became extremely anxious when he suggested it. She even approached her mother's friend, Sherry Lynn Vincent, and asked if she would go with them because she didn't want to ride alone with Evans. Evans, however, refused to allow Vincent to ride along. Huge red flag.
Yeah.
Vincent told Giles about Beatrice's apprehension, but Giles allowed her daughter to leave with Evans.
So you say allowed. Did she make her go? Because I'm sitting here going, at 10 years old, I know if I didn't want to go, I'd be like protesting my butt
Yeah,
off.
I'm not getting in that car. No, I'm not.
Right. And
Yeah.
you're not going to put me in it. No way. I'm fighting back. Like, did she literally force her to get in this car?
Like,
Ugh.
yeah,
Ugh.
apparently, like she had to have, and for Beatrice to be that apprehensive, like something had to have happened the two times that they went.
Yeah.
I mean, why would she be so scared if this guy was being Mr. Nice Guy and buying them things? She would have been like, "Okay, that's cool. I'll go again. Maybe I'll get something else."
No.
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 Evans informed them that he would be back in about an hour because he needed to call a friend who could help the group find an apartment. Like he was just being like the helpiest helper ever.
Wasn't he just at a payphone
Yeah, he was just at a payphone,
in the park?
in the park.
Okay.
But he has a friend and hey, he can help them get an apartment. I'm going to buy you food. I'm just bombing you with all of this like niceness right now. Yeah. This unfortunately would be the last time anyone would see Beatrice alive again. And this is where things get really harsh. At approximately 7 p.m., Evans and Beatrice left the park, but they did not go directly to the store. They headed west, and according to court records, Evans deluded Beatrice into believing that they were just taking a longer route. When Beatrice started getting a little antsy, Evans stopped in Bay St. Louis and purchased ice cream for her. Guess he thought that that would smooth things over and make her feel a little bit better because she was really nervous and not wanting to go any farther. But when he bought her ice cream, he also purchased a roll of duct tape.
Mm.
Back on the road, he crossed into Louisiana, traveling through St. Tammany Parish, where he eventually stopped in a secluded wooded area near Covington, Louisiana. When he pulled over, Beatrice immediately started crying. She told him she needed to go to the bathroom and could he please take her to one. He refused, and Beatrice lost control of her bowels. Completely trapped in Evan's vehicle, he ordered Beatrice to take off her clothes. She began crying and begging him to please take her back to her mother. This monster confessed to saying, "There is no one here to help you."
Oh, poor baby.
I know. He wrapped duct tape around her head and mouth several times. Then he removed her clothing and used a towel to clean her off from when she lost control of her bowels. He proceeded to brutally assault her sexually while strangling her to death with a white cotton rope. Evans then traveled back to Mississippi with Beatrice's body and dumped her in a wooded area in Pearl River County and disposed of her clothing nearby.
This is terrible.
Yeah, completely terrible. And her mother is just like, "Here you go, take her with you, it's fine." And then he goes and does this horrific thing.
Yeah. I mean, that would have been what I thought was going to happen. Like, hello.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're supposed to have that sense of these things when you're a mom. Like,
Right, a
you
motherly
know
instinct, you know.
something is wrong
Mm-hmm.
with this situation. So I'm just like completely at a loss as why you would let this man you just met today and barely know anything about just take your 10-year-old. It's crazy.
It really is. But before we move on, I do want to backtrack a bit about who Donald Leroy Evans is. Evans was born July 5th, 1957, in Michigan. He came from a family of 9 children. There wasn't a lot about his early life besides instability, abuse by his alcoholic mother. He had started showing disturbing behavior early on, and by the time he was a teenager, he was already getting in trouble. He had dropped out of school. He had a string of petty crimes. At the age of 16, he attempted suicide by mixing drugs with roach spray. And then he was hospitalized. They, rushed him to the hospital. He was supposed to be there on a hold and everything, but he
Hmm.
talked his way out within 2 weeks of
Seems
being
like
there.
he's talking his way in and out of a lot of things in his life.
Mm-hmm. In September of 1975, at the age of 18, Evans joined the Marines. Maybe he thought this would be, what he needed to straighten himself out or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I was like, is this some small effort to change? But I don't know.
It's a possibility. After boot camp, he was assigned to infantry training school at Camp Pendleton, California, and then transferred to the 3rd Marine Division in Okinawa, Japan. Upon arriving in Okinawa, he was assigned to perform maintenance duties and was put in the Correctional Custody Platoon, or CCP, because of his behavior.
Oh, I'm not gonna kid.
Eventually he was transferred back to the United States, where they listed him not as a member of the Marines, but as a patient. Like, you weren't even a Marine. They shipped you over there and then put you in this thing.
Yeah. Now you're just in the patient category.
Right.
Like I don't see this as service.
Not at all. They literally babysat you and put you through some psychiatric treatment or something.
Yeah.
This was from July 14th until his discharge on September 2nd of 1976. He lasted a whopping 9 months before being discharged for having a paranoid personality.
So I'm wondering if that like qualifies as like a honorable discharge since it was a mental health
I I would guess so.
associated. I don't know.
Because when he went in, I guess, maybe they thought they could reform him or do something, but then it got worse and he was
Like
not doing what he was supposed to
yeah,
do.
like you need to get out and get help.
Hmm. According to court records, Evans received psychiatric care in Illinois and Michigan in veterans hospitals off and on in the late 70s.
That kind of answers my question.
Yeah.
Because if he was dishonorably discharged, he couldn't use veteran
hmm
hospitals. Okay.
The psychiatric report sheds little light on Evans' whereabouts after he was released, and no one knew exactly when he arrived in Galveston, Texas. But this kind of became his home base for a little while. So he would drift around from state to state. He had a string of arrests, warrants. He committed various con jobs, gambling scams, theft. He lived off and on in Galveston. So he would always come back to Galveston.
Mm-hmm.
He would use aliases. He worked in the oil fields, on fishing boats. He would convince people he was an ex convict turned faithful churchgoer and charity worker.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. While in Galveston, he was arrested for assaulting his girlfriend, Gail Stewart, among many other things.
Totally reformed right there, yeah?
Right. Just a garbage human. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And then, to add on top of it, in 1986, he was charged with sexual assault of a Galveston woman. He had forced her to perform oral sex on him at knife point. Like, held a knife to her, made her strip down naked, held a knife to her, and forced her to perform oral sex on him. But he fell asleep. So she took the opportunity to escape. She was stark naked, but she got out of there. She called the police. And at the time of the assault, he was using an alias.
Oh, figures.
He said his name was Jason Michael McGowan and that he was 6 years older than he actually was.
Wow.
He tried to tell the police it wasn't him. It's not me. I'm Donald Evans. It was Jason McGowan that did this.
It's like, first of all, how do you know?
Right.
Did you watch?
Did you watch? Were you there?
Yeah, I don't understand how he thinks that was going to be something he could pull off just because that's what he told them.
Right. Because he's a con man, and he thought, he could talk his way out of it, apparently, and get around it and be like, oh, no, that wasn't me. That was somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So he ended up pleading guilty to the charge. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison, but was paroled just after serving 5 years, as usual.
Yeah. Like, oh, yeah, this is long enough. He's reformed. Let's send him on back out there.
Right. So upon his release from jail, he returned to his Galveston girlfriend, Gail Stewart. She was described by her neighbor, Joe Whitted, as a Christian lady who tried to convert him.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So she's like, Jesus, take the wheel.
Right.
So, help me fix this man.
Help me fix him. I can fix him.
Right. Bless
He's
his
assaulted
heart.
me before, but it's okay. I can fix him.
She's like, I got this.
Those are my words, not hers.
Yeah, no. I mean, literally, though, like, why would you want to be with somebody who sexually assaulted you and also sexually assaulted another woman at knife point? Like, he's done it twice. He's done so many other things before that. Maybe not on that level, but that was like an escalation in crime. So you'd have to assume it's just going to get worse. It ain't going to get better, honey.
Right. It's not going to get better. He's not going to reform and go back. I mean,
especially
I
not just because you're a woman of faith and you think that, you need to forgive and help this man.
Because he's just going to keep chugging along.
Yeah.
So he did seem to settle down for a little bit. One day he asked the neighbor, Whitted, he's like, hey, can I borrow your car? I need to go run some errands and stuff. And he's like, oh, yeah, it's fine. So he went in Whitted's house and got his keys. He also grabbed a TV and a VCR. And he went on a spree of pawning items, writing bad checks, and cashing them along the way. And didn't come back. And he was also using Joe Whitted's name. So as he was going along, he was pretending to be this man, writing checks on his account, doing all this stuff. Because the checkbook was in Whitted's trunk of his car. He had left it in there.
Oh, wow.
So he's like,
that's a weird place.
I know. I'm like, here's my checkbook. Let me throw it in the trunk of my car.
Like, were you taking out groceries and dropped it? Didn't realize it? Maybe so. I don't know.
Maybe so.
That's just a weird spot.
No one knows exactly when he ended up in Gulfport, Mississippi, but on August 1st, 1991, that is where he was approached by a little girl asking for cigarettes for her mother. Yeah.
Full circle.
Full circle. He could have served 15 years for his crime, but he got out on good behavior.
Yeah, well, this little girl would be alive if he would have served his entire time.
Indeed. So when Evans did not return with Beatrice in 1 hour, Sherry Lynn Vincent contacted the Gulfport PD. Not Beatrice's mother. Beatrice's mother's friend contacted the police. Vincent described Evans, Beatrice, and the Suzuki Samurai in which they were in. Vincent had memorized the license plate number because the whole situation just did not sit right with her. Like, good for her. At least she was sane enough to worry about Beatrice because her mother obviously was not.
But I'm sitting here going, why after? Like, why not say, like, step up and say something before? Be like, check it, Tammy.
Exactly. Check it.
Your daughter does not want to go with this man. You don't know this dude. Do not make that baby get in that car.
I guess she just wasn't that type of friend or aggressive type person. And she was like, well, maybe her mother knows best. And,
Yeah,
you know,
maybe.
she's making these decisions and I don't know her well enough to step in. I guess she didn't want to overstep her boundaries since she was getting a free ride and
Yeah, I guess that's
saying
true.
stuff.
Like, didn't want to get kicked out of the van.
Yeah, didn't want to lose her place in the van.
Yeah. But, I mean, at least, like you said, she did pay attention.
Yeah.
So she knew more than the mom did.
So I think in her mind, like her memorizing like what kind of car it was, the license plate number, all that stuff, and certain features about Evans was her way of like, I'm holding on to this. And if they're not back in an hour, I'm going to call the police.
Yeah.
Detectives questioned Giles at Jones Park and ran the plates. They determined the vehicle was stolen and belonged to Joseph Whitted and was in the possession of Donald Leroy Evans. The FBI contacted Evans' girlfriend, Gail Stewart, in Galveston, Texas, and put a phone monitoring device on her telephone to aid in locating him. They were also able to trace Evans through checks he was cashing.
Yeah, his little paper trail.
Exactly. And then like on the phone, because everybody used house phones back then in 91. So they were like, we're just gonna put this on the phone. That way if he calls you, because for some reason that was his rock. So he kind of always went back to her and he always, you know, if he got into some trouble, he automatically called her.
Yeah, well, I mean, she's proven that she's not going anywhere.
Right. She's like loyal to him and she's gonna do what he wants. But the FBI got involved. So they're like, look, we're putting this recording device on your phone and you're going to help us. He was tracked by law enforcement from August 1st to August 5th when he was arrested by a sheriff's deputy from Tangipahoa Parish in Louisiana. That following Sunday, authorities found Beatrice's body near a rural highway in southern Mississippi. She had been raped and strangled and dumped by the side of a road. According to court records, Dr. Paul McGarry testified that due to the nature of the wounds, in conjunction with the pain associated with this manner of death, as well as the fact that Evans killed a 10-year-old child, provides sufficient evidence from which reasonable jurors could conclude that this murder was especially heinous, atrocious, and cruel. This issue is without merit.
Yeah, like, no way with all of that stuff do you go, okay, you're cool.
Yeah, not at all. And you can't just say like, oh, this happened and she didn't feel a thing or she passed out or something. No, it was...
No, like she went through some serious mental and physical anguish.
Absolutely. On August 19th, Evans pled guilty to federal kidnapping charges and was sentenced to life in prison on October 24th.
So I take it that's for him crossing state line.
Yes.
Okay.
So that was the kidnapping charge that was put on him. October 15th, he was indicted by the Harrison County Grand Jury for capital murder with the underlying felony of kidnapping and 2 counts of sexual battery. So, you know, he had pled guilty to the one charge, but the grand jury had indicted him to go to trial for that. So Evans did not immediately confess to sexual assault and murder, only that he had kidnapped her.
Yeah, because he already said, oh, I'm guilty for
I kidnapped
on that
her
end, and I've been sentenced for that. So
while at the Harris County Detention Center, he refused to sign the waiver of rights form. In his second statement later that day, he was like, oh, okay, I kidnapped her and I murdered her. So, does that make it better? Like,
Still
because
doesn't
you
admit to everything else you just did
it,
before you killed her.
exactly. And so on August 14th, he agreed to give a videotaped confession, which was introduced into evidence at the hearing, but later said he was coerced and harassed by law enforcement into confessing. So he was like, they wouldn't give me clothing, they withheld food, they would kick me, and they were being just big old meanies to me and not giving me what I want. So
Yeah.
they coerced me into this.
Mm.
So there was a lot of back and forth there.
Right. So I did it. I
Hmm.
didn't do it. I did
Right,
it. I didn't do it. I did
right.
it. I didn't do it.
So on in June of 1993, along with three other prisoners, um, Evans had pulled a homemade knife on a guard to escape from prison. So they, made some shanks and tried to
Yeah.
escape and everything. He was found later that day, about a half a mile from the county jail. I'm like, he didn't get very far.
No.
Like, where are you going? What was the point in that? He was in a shed at a lumber yard, like the ones outside of Home Depot. He was just like, I'm gonna hang out in this shed, and
Yeah. Okay. Great hiding spot.
right. So, well, he went to trial in September, and he was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to death. So
Good.
now he's on death row.
Yeah.
So while he's in prison, he's like, I'm not getting enough attention. I'm not getting all the things I need. So he confessed to killing upwards of 70 victims from 1985 to 1991. The majority of those were ruled out and no evidence was found. So it was just a lot of him saying, "Oh yeah, in this state I did this and I killed this person and da 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 da." So it was a lot of talk.
Mhm.
He was a compulsive confessor. He would often brag about his crimes to cellmates, law enforcement, even reporters, anybody that would listen to him.
Yeah. So he's like reveling in attention. He's like, I want to be known. I want to be notorious. I want to be prolific. No.
Absolutely.
No.
And his confessions were often rambling, contradictory, making it difficult to separate fact from fiction. So he didn't get as much attention as he thought he deserved because around the time of Beatrice's murder, the news started reporting on another killer who was found to be a bigger deal than him. Like, what? A bigger deal than me? Because he was so full of himself.
He's like, no, wait. I've killed all these people. Wait, wait.
So this was in 1991, and I know you were up to date on your serial killers. Do you know who that might
Yeah.
be?
My guess
Like
would be
late 91.
uh, Jeffrey Dahmer, I
Ooh, you
think.
got the first guess. Yes,
Hey.
Jeffrey Dahmer. So Jeffrey Dahmer was getting all of this news attention because they were pulling body parts out of his house and
Yeah.
stuff. So
And let's just be real about it. Nobody deserved any of that
no,
attention. Like literally not Jeffrey, not any of the people that have been like,
Mm-mm,
nationalized.
not at all.
Uh it runs rampant through the news and everything else, and it's like, yeah, we all need to know who did it. Like
But let's
that's
not glorify them
yes,
and
absolutely
make them
not.
such a big deal.
Yeah. And so like, yeah, neither one of them needed to be known on a big scale.
But, he was mad about it. So while he was in custody, he continued to confess to numerous murders. He also claimed to be a white supremacist.
Oh wow.
Yeah. But despite his claims, investigators were only able to definitively link him to two other murders. This was in the same year in 1985 in Florida. And he ended up going to trial for that. He pled guilty to the strangulation death of Ira Jean Smith and Janet Movich.
Wow. Are these more kids or they're grown?
They're grown women, so they were. One of them I know was a prostitute.
Mhm.
I'm not sure about the other one. I really couldn't find the information about her, but these are two that what he said matched up exactly to what had happened.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
yeah, that's crazy. I mean, and who cares if one of them was a sex worker? It's like literally
right. Do your thing, girl.
they're right, do what you gotta do, but even being grown women, like it doesn't make it any better. Like
No.
it's still tragic and sad that, this man cut 3 lives
Yeah.
short.
And I'm sure he would have done the same thing, to the other woman that he was sent for, but
It didn't work out that way because he fell
right.
asleep.
He fell asleep. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So I have another question. Like, I want to know what the heck with mom. Because, again, I go back to where I'm like, did she make her get in the car? Like, she should be in trouble too here, in my opinion.
Right. Well, hold on to your sweet tea. In a disturbing twist, investigators found that Giles had a criminal record of her own.
Oh, wow.
So she had given up custody of her 15-month-old son because of abuse back in 1985.
Hmm.
She had pled guilty to a charge of endangering the welfare of a child. He was bruised badly, had cigarette burns on his lips and body, which were inflicted by both her and her husband at the time.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. So, mom wasn't innocent at all. The investigation revealed that Giles permitted her child to go with Evans with full knowledge that sexual activity was going to take place.
Yeah, I mean, this was before, like, human trafficking charges were a thing, but, hello,
Hmm.
that's what you just did.
So I don't know if he had offered her money or it was because he was getting them food and things for their whatever. She was like, "Oh yeah, and he in return, here's my 10-year-old daughter. Do whatever you need to her."
Ugh.
It's
She's not
disgusting.
currency.
No, not at all. So she was initially charged with being an accessory before the fact of sexual battery. She was held on a $10,000 bond because she might be a flight risk. I mean, she moves around all the time, so probably so. She did testify in Evan's trial where she stated that she was tricked into letting her daughter go with him. How are you tricked?
Yeah, I mean, he literally told you what he was gonna do with her, and
Right.
you gave him permission.
I'm going to take your daughter and sexually assault her, and nothing in your mind goes, wait a minute, that's wrong. You let
Yeah,
her go.
yeah. You want this barbecue.
Yeah, you're going to let me take her. And which it leads me to believe, like, the first 2 times he took her, there was some things going on, which is why she was so apprehensive about
Yeah.
going with him.
Ugh.
So he had obviously tried something before, and he knew he was going to go do.
Yeah, this has literally made me sick to my stomach. Ugh.
Hmm. At her trial, she pled guilty to a lesser charge of child neglect and was sentenced to only 2 years in prison,
Oh, look at these plea deals.
but was released on probation after serving less than a year.
Oh, wow.
So she got less than a year of trafficking her child
Yeah,
to this man with him saying, "Oh, I'm just going to go sexually assault her. I'll bring her back."
right. And she's like, here,
Right.
yeah, cool.
Has this happened before?
You know, that's what I was about to say. I'm like, it did more than what was told happened to the 15-month-old.
Mm-hmm.
Because,
And then she had
I
another
mean, to be
child
just
who was
that
like 3 years
okay with it.
old.
Yeah. Just to be that okay with it.
Yeah, just very nonchalant, like, "Oh, my friend over here is telling me not to, but go ahead and take her."
Yeah. Mm.
And if you're wondering what happened with Donald Leroy Evans, he is now 6 foot under
Where he
where
belongs.
he belongs. So it wasn't because of the death penalty.
Oh.
In 1999, while being led from the shower, a fellow death row inmate, Jimmy Mack, stabbed Evans to death.
That seems to happen a lot. I
Right.
find that a lot of people in prison for crimes like this kind of meet their fate
Mm-hmm.
and have the same thing happen to them.
And they weren't sure if it was racially motivated because he was like, "Oh, I'm a white supremacist,"
Right.
or it was because he sexually assaulted a child and killed her. But apparently, Jimmy Mack didn't have anything to lose, so he was like, "I got you.
Yeah.
I got your number. It's gone today."
Yeah. Punch
so,
in your ticket.
so the Mississippi District Attorney gave a statement about the whole thing because they had Evans in like confinement. He was
Mm-hmm.
kind of by himself because nobody could be around him and stand him like
Right.
at all. So he said, "We don't mourn him. We simply close his file." So,
Heart-wrenching.
very much so. And that little girl deserved way more in her life than what happened to her. And it's
Yeah.
just so sad.
You start off your life with a shitty mom and,
Yeah.
you know.
And just the moving around and the instability. And then it turned into trafficking your child.
Yeah.
Uh, Tammy should have gotten way worse than what she did.
I also can't imagine that nothing ever happened to her in the house, before. Like,
Mm-hmm.
she's abusing her 15-month-old son in conjunction with her husband. Like, why didn't Beatrice get taken away?
I'm not sure. And Beatrice would have been like, what, 4 or 5 at the time?
Yeah, because,
So,
yeah,
I mean, she had to have been abusing her or something. So maybe that's why she wanted to be in school so much and why she wanted to be away
true.
from her mother because that was her safe space.
Right. So I don't care if I'm sick. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
school. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
That was a harsh episode for my first one, but the more I got into it, I'm like, this story needs to be told. And I'm sure, some people have heard of it, but I had never heard of it myself.
Mhm.
So this was a case that was new to me, and when I found it and started digging through it, I definitely wanted it to get out there.
Yeah. It's definitely heavy,
Hmm.
for sure.
Believe it.
Whew. All right. Let's shake it off.
Shake it off, shake it off. Maybe the next one will be a little lighter.
I don't know
I
about
don't
that.
know.
But yeah, for sure. We'll shake it off and be okay.
Yeah, and
It'll
then
it'll probably stick with me for a while,
right,
unfortunately,
it's
but
gonna roll around in your head for a little while and
yeah,
everything,
yeah.
and like we said in our little introductory episode that we're gonna be putting out full episodes on Monday, and then our mini sips on Thursday.
Yeah.
And we're going to combine those with some true crime stories and some spooky stuff and some lore. Some of
Yeah.
some of the minisodes will be very informational.
Right. Educational mini
Yeah.
sips.
So
Yeah.
we'll, just in case you
Those will be the just a sip
just a
episodes.
sip. just so you can get a little knowledge in your noggin.
Yeah, I mean, and I feel like, a lot of us are curious about stuff, and
Right.
like you hear words thrown around constantly, sort of like your vagabond thing today,
Mhm.
and you're kind of like, what's the difference between,
A homeless person and a vagabond or
yeah, or
something like that
or
or
sociopath and psychopath?
right.
Like there's distinct differences, and I
Mhm.
don't think it's like always pointed out, so they get used like interchangeably, and
Right.
they're not the same
Right.
thing.
That's like when somebody's like, "Oh, I'm so OCD, I'm so clean." That doesn't mean that you're obsessive compulsive.
No.
That's when you go and check the door lock 10 times and
Yeah.
you have to tap things 3 times or you do,
Yeah,
there's
it's very
it's a
different.
ritual thing. You're washing your hands 20,000 times a day.
Yeah, because you have to, and
Right.
you can't help it. You can't stop it. Like
Mhm.
you can leave your house dirty for 3 days.
Yeah. I
You
always
might
say
be a neat freak,
yeah,
but
that's what I was going to
not
say.
OCD.
I say I'm a neat freak. I don't have OCD. I am a neat freak.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, it'll be cool because we can do those, and then,
Mhm.
like you said, the ghost stories and stuff like that, where we can have a little more fun. So it's a
Mhm.
little less heavy.
Right.
So thank you for joining us on Hold My Sweet Tea. All resources used to create this episode can be found in our show notes. Of course, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a review. You can also follow us on Facebook. It's Hold My Sweet Tea. And on Instagram at Hold My Sweet Tea _podcast. We also have a TikTok that's Hold My Sweet Tea podcast. And you can find us on the interwebs. It's holdmysweettea.com. Obviously, if you have a case you would like to be covered, or even a ghost story or a cool piece of Southern folklore, please email us.
Please do. Yes.
Yeah, so our email is steeped at holdmysweettea.com, and steeped is spelled STEEPED, just in case you wanted to know.
That's right. So follow us everywhere so you don't miss a single thing. And y'all remember to stay safe out there. And just because we're dipping doesn't mean y'all can't keep sipping.
Bye.
Bye.